All right, Kendall here, reporting live. No, not really. I'm just here to talk to you about the young adult novel Esperanza Rising by Pam Muñoz Ryan. It's a great young adult novel. It's wonderful. It covers a lot of themes that aren't usually covered in young adult novels, where there's prejudice, hope, the American dream, race, family is a big priority in this novel. And Pam Muñoz Ryan does a great job of approaching a lot of these topics that aren't normally approached in young adult novels. So this isn't a summary by any means. I'm just going to take you through points that I thought were important and critical, if you see what I mean. And what I'm going to do is just take us through chapter by chapter. There's only 13, so we won't be here that long. So let's get to it. So the novel starts off when Esperanza is 6 years old, and her father listen to the heart of the earth. They lay on their stomach and put their ears on the ground and just listen to the heartbeat of the earth, which is weird if you think about it, but don't knock it till you try it. And then it's also important to know that Esperanza comes from a life of privilege. Her family is wealthy owners in Mexico, and they own El Rancho de las Rosas. So fast forward to Esperanza being almost 13. She pricks her finger on a rose bush, which is a bad omen, but her mom is like, no, don't freak out about it, like, it's going to be fine. But Esperanza can't shake that, it's still kind of like a bad omen. So Esperanza was correct, because sadly her father is murdered by bandits outside of their ranch that night. But before they get that news, Esperanza is instructed by her grandma when she's helping her knit a blanket to not be afraid to start over, which is kind of the theme for the next 12 chapters in this novel. Okay, so Chapter 2, Esperanza and her mom mourn the loss of her papa, her dad, and both of his brothers try to take the land. Tia Luis is like, I'm going to marry you, to Esperanza's mom, and her mom's like, no, you're not, like, you're not going to, and then he storms off. And then Esperanza and Miguel, who is one of the guys who worked for her father, he's a little older than Esperanza, admire some rose bushes that Esperanza and Miguel had planted with her father like years ago. And these roses are like the rose bushes are like super symbolic, in my opinion. This is our first key point, really, because they represent both Miguel, who is of lower status than Esperanza, and then Esperanza, who's of higher status, because they both planted them in the ground. They're both from El Rancho de las Rosas. However, Esperanza's is like growing on trellises and is way above Miguel's, which is symbolic of her social status, and his lower one, which is, sticky. Alright, so Chapter 3. Esperanza wakes up to her house and all the fields around her burnt to a crisp. They're burning it down. The house is on fire. So she escapes. She gets out. But Abuelita, her lovely grandmother, is left in the house. Miguel heroically runs in and saves her, which is awesome. But then Mama decides that because her uncles undoubtedly set this fire, that they need to get out of Mexico and go to the United States to follow that American dream, to look for some new beginnings, because now they have nothing. So it's your non-typical riches to rags story. Alright, Chapter 4 is the first time that Esperanza is made aware of her lighter skin, which talks about that lovely race thing that Pam Muñoz Ryan talks about in this novel. The topic of race is not always covered in young adult novels, so it's cool to see it in here, explicitly stated in Chapter 4. Miguel kind of points it out to her, and he's like, you have Spanish heritage, and that's why you have lighter skin, and that's why you're wealthy, you're of upper status than him, other than himself, because she has lighter skin, which is something that's really important to take note of. Alright, anyway, let's keep it rolling. So, Chapter 5, Esperanza tries to hear the heartbeat of the earth like her dad taught her after they're in Los Angeles, because that's where they arrive on the train after a couple days, and she can't hear it. She gets really frustrated, and she also meets her rival, Marta, in LA, which is not great, because she hops in the car after Miguel's family picks them up, and it's just, she makes fun of her for being wealthy, and then they just have a rivalry for the rest of the book, which is great. Actually, not the rest, but you'll see. Alright, so Chapter 6, we find out that Esperanza is incompetent at doing household chores because she's never had to do them. So her and Isabel, who is the daughter of Miguel's family, or Miguel's uncle, and they're about the same age, Isabel's a little younger, they make a trade that if Esperanza will tell her some lovely stories about her wealthy upbringing, that Isabel will teach her how to do some chores, which is a strange alliance, but both parties are satisfied. Alrighty, Chapter 7, here we go. The roses that Esperanza thought had been lost were actually not. Miguel and Alfonso were able, who's the other person who used to work for them, were able to save some of them, and they brought them to California with them and planted them, and then they showed Esperanza, and it was like, your dad's still here. And the symbolic thing about the roses again is that Miguel's and Esperanza's roses both are at the same level this time. Symbolism. Shout out to Pam Muñoz Ryan. All right. Another thing is that Marta starts talking about how she wants them all to strike, but Esperanza, because they're living in I forgot to mention that. They're living in a migrant workers camp in California, doing just a bunch of, like, manual labor, and Marta is living in a different camp that is not as well off as Esperanza's, and she wants all of them to strike for better wages, and Esperanza's like, I don't understand why we need to strike. We get paid well enough, right? And it kind of shows her privilege that she doesn't really get that striking is kind of necessary in this regard. All right, so let's move on to chapter 8. She has to take care of the children. There's 2 small children in this family that her and Isabel took care of all summer while the other grown-up members went and worked in the fields. But now that Isabel is going to go to school, Esperanza really has to take care of the kids all on her own. She feeds them plums and it makes them sick, which is not good, but then she cures them with rice, which is cool. But then she also has to prepare dinner for everyone and she burns it. But no one seems to notice, or no one comments on the burnt dinner because they see that she's really trying, which is very different because she was very self-absorbed and not trying for the longest time. And I would say that chapter 8 is really where she starts to, like, shift her growth, like starts growing and shifts her, like, focus in life from, like, herself to, like, serving other people, which is really cool because she's able to take care of 2 children and prepare dinner for the entire family at a very young age. She's only 13. She's barely 13. She's been 13 for, like, 2 months. Like, this is crazy. But while she is taking care of all these people, there's a dust storm that comes in, and she's just worried about her family members and the other people around her. She's not thinking about herself, but she's thinking about the welfare of other people, which is different for Esperanza. Everyone comes back and seems fine, but then about a month later, Mama contracts valley fever. And so she gets told that she may not survive it, that it'll take 6 months. So who knows? Who knows? Only time will tell. All right. Chapter 9 really details the growth of Esperanza, which is, like, honestly my thing. My biggest theme is the growth of her from being, like, a self-absorbed, privileged person going to really caring for everyone else and having very little for herself. She's 13, but now she's out of the household because her mom's sick and in the hospital because she has to pay for her medical bills somehow. So she begins working removing eyes from potatoes with the other women. She does not complain of the manual labor or the condition. She just works her absolute hardest to provide for her mother. And she also grows as a person here. When detailing her previous Christmas celebrations to Isabel, she keeps asking her about them. She stops her from talking about all the presents she received and instead asks Isabel, like, what she would want. And Isabel told her that she'd be happy with anything because she doesn't normally get gifts for Christmas. And I think this really, like, grounded Esperanza. She then tells her that instead of having things, she just wants her abuelita to be in California with her and her mother, and for her mother to be cured of valley fever. She's matured a lot over the past year or so. Chapter 10, 3 more to go. She notices how coarse and calloused her hands are from doing all the manual labor. So she's been tying grapevines and removing eyes from potatoes, and she kind of takes note that they'll never return to the form that they once were of a privileged child, really. And this is important because she kind of realizes that she can never go back to the life she used to have when her father was alive. Mama gets diagnosed with pneumonia, which is a big deal because that's just another thing. And so Miguel and Esperanza go to the store, and Esperanza buys a piñata for her mom to try and attempt to make her happy. But on their way home, Miguel and Esperanza pass Marta's camp, and she gives a piñata to some hungry children in an attempt to brighten their day, which is another thing that she's, like, giving this to children, and that she's, like, trying to, like, brighten other people's days and not just living for herself, but living for a lot of other people around her, even if she doesn't know. Like, she didn't know these children at all. Chapter 11, Marta and the rest of the strikers strike. Surprise. And they throw rocks at the people who do not strike. They kind of come in and they're just, like, surrounding all the field workers or the, like, Esperanza's people and, like, throwing rocks at them, shouting at them, telling them to come strike. But then people from the immigration office come and to deport them for striking. But Marta hides, and Esperanza helps conceal her as a worker, which is a huge growing moment for Esperanza because she could not stand this girl. And now she's like, well, I don't want her to be wrongfully deported. Like, this isn't something that should happen to her just because I don't personally like her that much. Which is really cool. All right, chapter 12 is where pretty much everything happens that matters in this story. Not that everything else doesn't matter, but this is like a lot. Isabel decides for one run for Queen of May at her school, which is cool because she has great grades, but she won't win because she doesn't have blonde hair and blue eyes, according to her mom, Josefina. She's like, she can't win. I don't know why she's trying. She has to be American and white and blonde hair, blue eyes, and she's not. She's Mexican. She can't win. And this really, like, doesn't register for Esperanza. She's like, oh no. But then on top of that, a new camp with a pool is being built, which is cool. But the Mexicans can only swim in it the day before cleaning because they are thought to be dirtier than other people. And Esperanza's really just aggravates her. She's like, absolutely not. And then on top of that, Miguel loses his job because someone else will do it for less, and Esperanza is outraged. She calls him a second-class citizen, and then he is like not pleased, and he counters her and says that she needs to stop thinking herself as a queen, and it's just this huge argument. And then on top of all that, Isabel does not win Queen of May, and she's devastated. So Esperanza gives her a doll that her father gave her that she wouldn't let anyone touch it when she first got there, but now this is really a growing thing, and she gives it to her and is like, this is more permanent than the Queen of May. This will be here with you until you lose it or whatever happens to it, but like, you have this, and the Queen of May is just a title that you have for May, and this really soothes her. But then all this stuff happens, and then but Esperanza receives news that her mom is better, which is awesome, and that she can come home in the next week, which is so cool. And she's like, yes, I'm so excited. I've been saving so much money to try to pay Mama's medical bills and bring Abuelita here. And so she's like, I can go show my mom all the money I made. And she goes to check for the money, and it's gone. Her money is gone, and the only other person who knew where it was Miguel, and he stormed off and is gone. So Esperanza knows Miguel took her money because he's the only one who knew where it was, and she's just upset. But then Miguel comes back with Abuelita, brings her to California, and he explains that he took the money just for the purpose of bringing Abuelita to California. So everything's worked out, and it's nice, and it's wonderful, and beautiful, and lovely, and a year has passed. It's right before Esperanza's 14th birthday, and she goes to watch the sunrise, which is very symbolic, you know, get it? Esperanza Rising. Love that sunrise, and it kind of starts at, like, don't be afraid to start over, that whole thing again, which is really important because then she lays down on the ground and tries to hear the heartbeat of the earth, and she can this time. So it's like, even though Papa's gone, it's fine because her family's reunited, Mama's here, Abuelita's here, and everything's just going to be fine. The novel ends with a cute little anecdote where Esperanza's teaching Isabel how to knit, and she's giving her advice that Abuelita once gave to Esperanza of, don't be afraid to start over, which is really cool and important and a lovely ending to this lovely novel. So thanks for listening to my critical review. Sorry it took 13 minutes, but you know, it's going to be great.